How's it going, guys? It's Illumignostic. Welcome to my first Grateful Dead reaction video. As you guys might know already, I'm doing my reaction videos a little bit differently and choosing material that I know really well that I might be able to offer some kind of input or insight into, either the structure of the music or the meaning behind the lyrics or some history. This Doing That Rag is an amazingly wonderful Grateful Dead song. It's really early. From their third album, Aoxomoxoa, which is supposedly from a Native American word, I don't know which tribe, and it's a palindrome. It didn't get played a lot, like I think 8 times or something, because it was a bit awkward and the structure was kind of restrictive, so they couldn't really do the kind of freeform improvisation around the song that they would like, and so it got dropped pretty quickly, which is too bad, because it's a great song, and I think it really is as relevant at the current moment as it was back then, because we're going through a very similar kind of situation. And I think the title, The Rag, the dance that they're talking about, is really about shaking off the chains and the conventions of the old paradigm and moving forward into a different kind of psychedelicized consciousness. So let's go ahead and check it out. Alright, so right away we have some interesting factoids to share. The Mangrove Valley Chasing Light Beams line is actually a reference to taking LSD and going to Mangrove Valley, where there are pockets of neon gas that would actually shoot up out of the ground and send green light beams shooting through the atmosphere. Just trying to imagine these guys back then and the level of freedom they had. You know, LSD wasn't illegal yet, and I mean, they were literally high on LSD chasing light beams around with Jerry Garcia. There are actually people that can lay claim to having done that, so pretty amazing. So as I mentioned in the beginning of the song, you know, I think the rag is the dance that people are doing when they're starting to wake up and break out of the old paradigm. The way he put it is step off sharply from the rank and file. And, you know, there's a bit of awkwardness inherent in that process, and I think the sort of clumsy awkwardness of the song, in a good way, but, you know, it kind of helps to communicate just the general weirdness of prying open your third eye and realizing that you're literally surrounded by zombies. I mean, to try to imagine these guys in the, you know, mid-60s, taking LSD for the first time and being part of the first wave of psychedelic humans, it's almost incomprehensible to imagine the level of alienation. I mean, even for me in the 90s, it was pretty crazy, the sense of alienation. So I can only imagine. And there's also a lot of references to carefree living and taking your chances, living by the seat of your pants and embracing the unique opportunities that are presented each day by the universe. So, it's very hopeful and kind of rebellious undertones of this song. So we got some pretty profound stuff to unpack from this last bit. The first inclination that we have some religious undertones is to wash your lonely feet in the river in the morning. That is quite likely a reference to Jesus washing the feet of his disciples, because, in the new paradigm, there is no God judging you. There's no God watching you. The God is within, and so the responsibility for your own salvation lies within you, not in any external savior. And then that's reinforced, actually, in the line, wade in the water, you'll never get wet if you keep on doing that rag. Wade in the water is actually a reference to an old African-American slave song that was about the practice of concealing their West African traditions in the baptism ritual. So there's a real break represented in this verse from the old mores of religious traditions. You have sovereignty, no God ruling over you, God is within, and you are responsible, and only you, for your actions and freedoms. You will reap what you sow, so sow something beautiful, and you will reap your just rewards. It's a declaration of taking our power back from the old hierarchical religious systems. I also thought it was really sly how he sort of covertly slipped that message into the wade in the water and you'll never get wet line. And that's another really powerful thing about the Grateful Dead and their the depth of their lyrics. If you don't know all of these old historical references, you don't really fully understand the true depth of the lyrics. And so if you're really inspired to understand it, then you have to learn history and you have to learn different types of philosophy. And there are even a lot of old occult references. And the language of symbolism, they use a lot of the crow and the sun and the wind and all of these sort of hermetic and alchemical symbols. So there's, motivation, if you really get interested in this stuff, to literally expand your consciousness and develop your intelligence, which is an essential part of, the process of accepting our sovereignty and becoming, our own rulers.
Down.
So there you have it, guys. One of the all-time great forgotten Grateful Dead classics. In that last verse, we have a couple of references that are pretty ubiquitous in Grateful Dead lore. You know, gambling, because everything is a gamble. You can always win and lose. And then that last refrain about all falling down, all going under, is at least partly a response to the old nursery rhyme from the bubonic plague era. They would use this a number of times, probably most famously in Throwing Stones, about the politicians. Ashes to ashes, all fall down. The kids, they dance and shake their bones while the politicians are throwing stones. Ashes, ashes, we all fall down. In this context, it was just going along with the general idea that if we don't tune into this psychedelic consciousness or higher consciousness, if we don't elevate and lift ourselves up, the mushroom cloud at the end of history will be that of Oppenheimer and not of McKenna and Leary. And that's not what we want to see. You know, they were very well aware, I think, in the mid-1960s, at least, you know, the Grateful Dead in their circle, that the stakes were literally that high. You know, they had grown up through the nuclear fear of the late 1950s, and really amazing to me also that the United States would drop nukes on Japan and then use that to terrify their own citizens. But that's what happened, and so they grew up as kids with this horrific cloud hanging over their heads of the possibility, the real possibility of nuclear holocaust. And now here we are again in the middle of a psychedelic renaissance and on the edge of a war that could very easily go nuclear, and having apparently not learned the lesson, or at least not having taken responsibility for taking the reins back from the overlords. So it's really quite a tragic circumstance. And again, we're confronted with the option, and we're seeing that people mostly seem like they would rather cling to their life preservers and stay in their comfort zones and attack and ridicule the people that try to provoke them to action and awareness than actually take responsibility for affecting the kind of change that we need to see. And so those of us that are choosing to bear light, to try to take a stand yet again, it's really important for us to go back and to look at this last optimistic moment in our own history and try to engineer our own moment so that we are triumphant. There's no way that I personally can express my debt and gratitude really for the Grateful Dead in terms of the music and the impact that it's had on my life, and the fact that it still inspires us to strive for the higher mind and to learn and be kind. So thank you guys so much for spending this time with me. I'm going to do a ton of these. There's going to be a lot of great music on this channel, so please subscribe. Consider becoming a patron. Also, you can shoot me an email if you want to sign up for music lessons. And, you know, don't forget to check out my main channel if you're interested in psychedelics and alchemy and consciousness and that sort of thing. So thank you so much, and we'll see you again soon.